right, greetings again. We are back. This is Disgruntled USA on Xcluded Media with Unfiltered, the host of Unfiltered, Eduardo Naret.
Nice to be back.
Yep. We just got finished watching the State of the Union address, and I personally am riveted at the moment. It was an extraordinary speech. He hit all the major points. What was your feeling about the speech?
I thought it was a pretty good speech. I had read before that some sources were saying it was going to be a little toned down. He didn't want to be necessarily a bomb thrower, that there was going to be a uniting message, which we definitely saw straight off the bat, talking about uniting Americans, all Americans, not about, you know, winning as a party, but winning as a country. And then the one key moment to me that kind of got my blood boiling was when they talked about abortion, which is something we predicted earlier. Because for him to talk about what Governor Northam said a few days ago, which, in case you didn't watch the first stream, we were just going over how he basically talked about infanticide. And they basically panned to the crowd. And I didn't see any Democrat stand up and applaud. He didn't call, as we predicted, for the end of, you know, all abortion. He just said, Congress, I'm calling you to come together to end late-term abortion, which is an extreme form of abortion. It's not even allowed in Europe. And none of those Democrats could even applaud or stand up. That made me angry because they're literally defending baby killing, and it's sick. It made me sick to my stomach. And then a couple other things. He talked about the wall. I wish maybe he would have gone more into depth about, you know, kind of trying to take out those Democrat talking points about how it's immoral and stuff like that. But overall, I mean, a great speech. I think there were some key moments that I wish he kind of would have challenged, maybe turned around and looked at Pelosi, looked at the crowd and say, why can't you support that? You know, when he talked about black unemployment being so low, I also noticed the Democrats, they didn't stand up for anything. I mean, talking about America net exporter of oil, they wouldn't clap for that. He should have said, why can't you guys support that? Just kind of a little offline. That would have been interesting to see, but overall pretty good.
Right. You know, I think it was really telling, the Democrat reaction, the things that they decided to stand for. Of course, they decided to stand up for things like women in Congress, et cetera, women unemployment. But like you said, seeing all those Democrats sit down and, you know, stay seated while he was talking about executing babies. He used the word, it's an execution. It's an execution, which is exactly what it is. And we were talking about the kind of terse, visceral language that Trump is sort of known for. He, you know, he spoke a lot about bipartisanship. He spoke a lot about getting together, Democrats and Republicans working together to get things done. But using that kind of language was like one of those, it was one of those, I guess you could say, dog whistle, but it wasn't a dog whistle.
Yeah.
It was more like a shout into the crowd, you know?
Yeah.
He was basically saying, he was calling it what it is. He was calling these abortions public executions. He called ISIS monsters, you know, vicious, rabid monsters and stuff like that. He was very deliberate, I think, about the sort of language that he used to describe a lot of the issues that are going on. And I think that goes a little bit back to what we were talking about before, about what is this? Is this a 4D chess, or is he just instinctually so good at this? You know, because right now is the time that we need for there to be some bipartisanship. You know, he was calling out for it, but he basically pushed the liberals into a corner where they're sitting down for life.
Yeah.
You know, they're sitting down for a cure for AIDS. They're sitting down for a cure for cancer. They're sitting down for protecting Americans, you know?
And we're not overstating this. I mean, I was astounded. I mean, I have never seen anything like that, honestly. I guess the only conclusion I have is they really must dislike the successes of the country that much. And they're not biased partisan successes. I mean, there's things that everyone should be able to clap for. We invite you to go back and watch the speech, some of these key moments for these general issues. They would not stand, would not smile, would not clap. I mean, I was kind of taken aback by that.
Yeah, I was definitely taken back, and I've never seen so much RBF in my whole life. You know, Chuck Schumer just sitting there like this the whole time. I mean, that smarmy, smug look on his face, like, I can't believe I have to be here tonight. Nancy Pelosi, of course, she was acting pretty obnoxious the whole time.
She kept checking those papers, like when it was going to, I think she was trying to find where he was in the speech to see, like, is this over? You know?
Right, do I have to sit here and stand up one more time? All the standing up and sitting down and standing up and sitting down. I mean, you could really tell that she was super nervous and was feeling very uncomfortable about the whole thing, you know, because the liberals, I mean, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez too, she was looking around.
She looked so angry the whole time. I mean, furious.
She was looking around do we stand for this? Do we stand for this? So inexperienced.
Yeah.
She knows nothing about what she's doing. She knows nothing about America. She doesn't even know when to stand up and sit down. You know, most people, when you talk about saving people's lives and curing AIDS, curing diseases. Like, that's something that you stand for. And she's like so inexperienced, and she's like taking her cues from these hardcore leftists who literally will not put down their white robes.
Well, there were some pretty funny memes going. I was on my phone kind of trying to see what the conversation was like. There was a meme about, who told them all to wear white, and it showed them all wearing white, but then someone had kind of superimposed the KKK hood on them. Kind of looked pretty funny. There was another meme as well, because like I said, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she wasn't the only one. I mean, Representative Ilhan Omar, they just looked so miserable to be there. And so, I had a friend post a meme who said, can you imagine trying to go on a date with one of these women? They just look like such angry, miserable people. They didn't look happy to be there, and it's like, well, you ran for this position. You should take pride in maybe representing your constituents and being able to celebrate some good moments for America.
Right, but they're not into that. They're not. They don't care. I mean, look, you can really see their true colors. First of all, they're all collectivists.
Yeah.
They can't stand up without everyone else standing up. They can't make a decision, even about things that anybody could naturally support. They can't even make the decision to applaud something on an individual level. You can see exactly how collectivist they are. And also the things that they chose to stand for and not to stand for, you really see their politics coming through. And Trump came out looking like a champion.
Well, there were several, back to those moments that a natural person just watching would stand up for. I thought the First Step Act stuff was very effective. I personally was against that. The First Step Act, I have a little bit of a tougher view on crime. I don't know what your feelings are, but even listening to the cases he highlighted, I thought to myself, well, maybe there's a lot of good to this bill that I didn't really pay attention to before. So really effective for someone who's against it. I can't imagine people who've been trying to push this, as he said, for many years. They should be thrilled about it. I thought those two really key people he highlighted. I think Alice Johnson was one of them, and the other man's name escapes me, but really powerful, emotional stories about how they kind of reshaped their lives while in prison.
Right, absolutely. And look, I think that's one of the magical things about this administration is that the guy is like we were talking about before. The guy is not like a hardcore right winger. The guy can step across the aisle, and it really paints a picture as far as to how much ire the other side has for him. Because when he steps across the aisle, they just sit there with a resting bitch face the whole time. You know what I mean? And it just makes them look bad. It makes them look bad. It makes Trump look awesome. Anybody watching that speech is going to think, what's so bad about this?
Yeah.
The liberals are going to have to resort to their normal tactics by saying, oh, well, it was a racism, hate-laden speech that, he was just dog whistling to all of the racists and white supremacists out there, even though he had all these black people standing up, he had these Jews standing up, veterans, women, all these people. As clear as it was to everyone who is normal watching the speech, it made it just so visceral to watch the Democrats turn their noses at all the things.
Well, and that's why my hope is that for people who watched on TV, these independents who we talked about before, maybe they tune into politics 1 or 2 times a year, State of the Union and election night. I hope they watched the speech and then turned off their TVs. Because I think the natural human reaction to watching that is something more along the lines of what we're discussing. But I'm afraid if they leave, CNN on or MSNBC on, whatever, they're going to start to get infiltrated with some of those talking points that the news anchors already have to kind of counter the president's message, or these quote-unquote fact checks that just aren't really accurate anymore. They kind of talk, well, he mischaracterized. Well, it's really, they don't even, it's not even about facts anymore. They say, well, that's misleading. I mean, that's kind of a point of view. They're not true fact checks. And I'm hoping that these independents really kind of turn off the TV, let it sink into their own natural reactions, and kind of look at it that way.
Right. I think most people watching it, I think if you are really looking at it in an objective way, you will notice that he has made good on a lot of his promises. A lot of people have jobs, myself being one of them. Okay.
Yeah.
The economy is doing great. Everybody is doing awesome. You look outside, you don't see people getting accosted every single day. You don't see racist acts of violence happening all the time. All you hear about, like any acts of violence that are going on are happening inside the minds of liberals.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I think that when you look outside, you start to see that there's no genocide going on. Gays are not being carted off. Blacks are not being enslaved again. Jews are not being gassed. It's just one of those things where you just have to look at reality to judge the quality of what's going on in the country right now. And I think if people who are honest with themselves will understand, and they will also see that this president is doing a really, really good job. All things being equal, the guy is doing a bang-up job.
Well, I think some of the moments, too, that I think will really speak to people of all political stripes was when he was talking about ending the pointless foreign wars. That was like a huge part of his campaign, that Americans, Republicans, Democrats, Independents were like, yes, thank you, finally someone after nearly 20 years is calling for the American troops to come home, calling us to save money, to stop spending so much money on these foreign wars. And I'm glad that he spent a good, I would say probably 2-3 minutes harping that point, and I think a lot of people watching will appreciate that.
Right. And I think one of the interesting things about that particular aspect of it is that now he's pushing liberals into, he keeps on pushing them into these corners. He's pushing them into being pro-war.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's amazing.
Yeah, they're like, oh, well, you're just going to let Kim Jong-un say that or do that? You're just going to like go and negotiate with the dictator, you know? Like when just a little while ago, they were like, well, you know, it was the conservatives were allegedly the ones that, you know, the military-industrial complex going around fighting wars that we don't need to fight. The guy is basically hitting all the right points in a way that is palatable to both sides, and the liberals just look sour.
The last thing I would say too is I guess I was wrong. There wasn't a big moment of protest or anything like that. The one thing I think is when he started talking about the caravans coming, you heard some Democrats in the crowd groaning, you know, acting like he was exaggerating. But I mean, again, I loved how he talked about, look, walls save lives. There's all this human trafficking going on. I think he actually understated the amount of, I think he said 1/3 of women get sexually assaulted. Other studies show as high as 4 out of 5. So, you know, I'm glad the American people got a chance to hear the other side of the immigration debate, to see and hear the pain that happens to people on both sides of the border. You know, our own American people, even the illegals who try to come over, they go through a difficult track. And his basic point was a wall will save lives. It'll discourage those people from coming, and it'll also save the country money. He touched upon the financial aspect of illegal immigration, how we've got overcrowded schools, hospitals, lower wages, and I think that's something that's not talked about often enough.
Right. I think one of the great things, and we'll leave it off here, is that one of the things that he did was that he framed the issues in a way that liberals can understand.
Yeah.
In a way that liberals can get. You know, he talked about the girl with cancer. He talked about pre-existing conditions. He talked about all these things that liberals ought to understand if they were being honest.
Yeah.
But I think this speech is going to do a hell of a lot for his cause. I think it's going to do a hell of a lot for 2020. And you know, moving forward, I think part of it is because he has reached across the aisle, and you know what's going to happen next. You know they are going to turn away his gestures. You know they're not going to budge. You know they're not going to work with him. And I think that's going to speak really. I think that's going to speak much louder than, you know, any sort of virtue signaling that you might get from your average liberal saying that they care about people, that they care about the sick, that they care about the children, that they care about babies, that they care about people who are sick, or you know, people who are even from other countries.
Yeah.
You know, the whole idea is that, you know, that we are a compassionate nation, and the more we care about, the more we work on ourselves, the better example we are to other countries. You know, freedom of the American Constitution, we don't have a copyright on it. Any other country can take our ideas, take our Constitution, and model their own after it. We do not have a monopoly on freedom. Okay, I think that's one of the things we ought to remember moving forward, and you know, and we ought to keep a close eye on what the liberals do after this. We have to keep a close eye on everything. My name is Brett Siegel. This is Eduardo Nuret. I am here with Disgruntled USA on Xcluded Media. He has a show called...
I'm here with Unfiltered. Just want to say before Brett closes off, too, send us your questions, comments on the live stream. We're probably going to both be answering a lot of those, breaking this down further throughout the week with our episodes, and definitely kind of trying to reset the narrative after the mainstream media tries to change the story of tonight. So definitely keep tuning in, Disgruntled USA and Unfiltered for the rest of the week.
Thanks so much. This is Brett Siegel, the Disgruntled Millennial on Disgruntled USA, where we're always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. Thank you so much for tuning in, and good night.
Thanks, guys. Or not.
Yeah, right. All right, let's go.